Amaka had never believed in such superstitions, but she respected the tradition nonetheless. She had vowed to be faithful to her husband, and she had kept that promise for the past 5 years of their marriage. But on this night, as she watched the villagers dance around the fire, she couldn't shake off the feeling of guilt that consumed her. She had cheated on her husband. As the sun set over the small village, the sound of drums filled the air. The local tribe was celebrating their annual tradition, a tradition that had been passed down for generations. It was a tradition that was taken very seriously, as it was believed to protect the sanctity of marriage within the community. CHIAMAKA had married into this tribe, her husband being the chief's son. She had always been fascinated by their culture and traditions, but there was one tradition that she couldn't quite understand. It was said that any married woman who cheated on her husband would die mysteriously, except there is a cleansing ritual. Amaka had never believed in such superstitions, but she respected the tradition nonetheless. She had vowed to be faithful to her husband, and she had kept that promise for the past 5 years of their marriage. But on this night, as she watched the villagers dance around the fire, she couldn't shake off the feeling of guilt that consumed her. She had cheated on her husband. It had started innocently enough, with a flirtatious conversation with a handsome white man who had come to the village for a business trip. Amaka had found herself drawn to him, and before she knew it, they had ended up in bed together. The guilt had hit her immediately after, and she had tried to forget about it. But as the days went by, her conscience weighed heavily on her. She knew she had to tell her husband the truth, but she was afraid of the consequences. As the night went on, the dancing and celebrations continued. Amaka couldn't bring herself to join in, her mind consumed with thoughts of her infidelity. She became scared. She didn't know what the consequences of her actions were. She knew she had to tell her husband, but she didn't know how. Finally, she mustered up the courage and approached her husband. She told him everything, expecting him to be angry and hurt. But to her surprise, he remained calm and collected, and this made her more worried. He then explained to her the seriousness of their tribe's tradition. He told her that cheating on one's spouse was not only a betrayal, but also a disrespect to their ancestors. He reminded her that their ancestors had established this tradition to protect the sanctity of marriage within their community. CHIAMAKA was filled with remorse, shame, and regret. She had never intended to hurt her husband or their marriage. She begged for forgiveness, but her husband's face remained stern. He then told her that according to tradition, she must face the consequences of her actions. She must go through the ritual of purification to cleanse her soul of the sin she had committed. Only then could she be forgiven by their ancestors. The ritual was a grueling process, with CHIAMAKA having to fast and purify her body for 14 days. She also had to confess her sins in front of the entire village and seek forgiveness from her husband. She must not make love to her husband nor cook for her family for 6 months. And if this is not done, she will die mysteriously from a strange illness. Finally, the day of the ritual arrived. CHIAMAKA was led to the sacred river, where she was bathed in mixed water and blessed by the river goddess, and given a platter of redemption by the village elders. After the bath and eating the platter of redemption, which was a plate of fresh goat ears, she felt a sense of peace and forgiveness wash over her, and she knew that she had been granted a second chance. She stayed away from her husband sexually, as it is supposed that for the 6 months period she will be a virgin again. After her rituals, she became more conscious of the scared tradition, that it was not just a celebration, but was for real. Amaka became a devout follower of their tribe's traditions. She had learned her lesson and vowed to never betray her husband again. She had also gained a newfound respect for the traditions and beliefs of her husband's people. As the years went by, Amaka and her husband's love only grew stronger. They had overcome the hurdle of infidelity and emerged as a stronger and more united couple. And as for the tradition, Amaka had come to understand and appreciate its importance in preserving the sanctity of marriage within their community.